All right. Well, we're going to get started, guys. Thank you, everyone, for coming and welcome to this info session on funding futures. This is a new training and grant program from Partners for Climate Action. We're really excited to share with you. So just so you know, as you just heard, this session is being recorded and we ask that you mute yourselves, but feel free to use the chat for comments. So I'm Paige Ruane, and I'm a co-founder of Partners for Climate Action. I'm here with my colleague, Vanessa Bertozzi, who works with us here at Partners for Climate Action. She's also a village trustee in Rhinebeck. We designed this program together. And so on our agenda today, we're going to be talking through the impetus for why we started this program, why we designed it. I'll give you some concrete examples to help you understand what your community might get out of this program. I'll give you an overview of the program. I'll walk you through a timeline, go through some details of the application, and that'll take about 20-25 minutes, and we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So what was the impetus for this program? Why did we design it? So our PCA's mission is to catalyze climate action in the Hudson Valley. We offer various forms of support and grants, really to enhance resiliency, to draw down emissions, to repair ecosystems, and to catalyze action here in our home that we share. So in designing this program, Vanessa and I really leaned into the word catalyze. We really asked ourselves and dozens of colleagues that we're grateful to for their feedback when we were designing this, how can we catalyze action and in leveraged ways? How can we really make the most of our efforts? And what can we do now that will set us up for success in the future? We really wanted to think more deeply about that. So our theory of change is that it really comes down to local people. And when they are empowered, engaged, and connected, things change. So that really means community building. And it means us getting off of our machines, getting offline and connecting neighbor to neighbor. So that's really easier said than done. It's all about building capacity. So we thought through the fact that, we've worked with municipalities before, and we thought through the fact that town board meetings are usually not conducive to dialogue. And the normal meeting places that neighbors and community members used to find each other, like community centers or, houses of worship or the old farmers' grange halls, we're really not frequenting those places as much. So it occurred to us that our society has really lost its muscle memory for how to come together and listen and envision a shared future. So Vanessa and I set about designing a program that would be an antidote to that and that would offer structure and funding to really reclaim those abilities and our connection to each other. So Funding Futures will help communities build the skills to run nonpartisan listening campaigns in their towns. So we've also learned firsthand from colleagues, even when communities engage in planning, successful planning processes, their plans often sit on a shelf. So the second main purpose of Funding Futures is to help communities find reliable revenue streams that they can use to fund their projects from their community defined priorities. So we are aware of proven and largely untapped ways of acquiring funds, and we're going to be training you on how to access those. So we also need tangible plans that emerge from consensus. We've also learned that, and sometimes painfully, that when a small group of people creates a plan for a community, if they don't consult the community-wide, all the residents, it really doesn't go well. We've seen this over and over, and we've learned from other colleagues as well. So the steps we propose are going to build consensus um, through greater inclusion. Okay, so here are some examples I'm going to walk you through, but please don't take these as prescriptive. So we really want you to hear from your community and create what you feel your community needs. And so these are just models that you can customize and examples that may spark some ideas. So we were really inspired by Red Hook's Cookingham Farm project. In a way, this is like an all-in-one dream project. They set about planning and executing a plan that preserves agricultural land, develops parcels for affordable housing. They created a solar farm. They've been conserving forest and wetland parcels, and they've been laying out recreational walking trails. So this has really changed the atmosphere of their town. And so how did they do it? So back in 2007, they voted on and approved a community preservation plan and fund. So for those of you who are not familiar, a community preservation plan is a plan that a community devises and then gets authority from New York State to create a fund where they can charge a real estate transfer tax, meaning on a certain price of the house sales that happen in their community, they can charge a tax. So Red Hook did do that. They had a referendum after they created this plan, and they started charging a 2% real estate transfer tax on house sales over $400,000. And they also partnered with a couple of land trusts and REPCO, which is a nonprofit working on affordable housing in the Hudson Valley. So this is something that we're going to be helping our fellows to understand, this real estate transfer tax option. Okay, so maybe your community, maybe you have big dreams for your community, maybe probably others do too. So it's up to your community to tell you what those are and for you to all consider them together. Whatever ideas surface, we're going to work with you to leverage them. We're going to help you think strategically about how to do that so that you can do something above and beyond the norm of what you would consider. And we're going to help you find resources to do so. So here are some ideas. Again, we're not saying you need to pick one of these. On the contrary, we want you to come up with, we want to see what your community comes up with, but these are the types of things. So, landfill methane capture. There's a series of communities that are actually working on this right now. That makes a big difference. Green affordable housing, flood management in your community. We know that flooding is a major issue here. A deer management plan. We know the deer are ravaging our forests, and there are solutions to this. An open space plan, or whatever your community sees as its needs or can really dream up. Okay, so now let's get into the brass tacks of our program. So Funding Futures is a one-year program for communities in the Hudson Valley. Our organization focuses on the watershed, the Hudson River watershed. So that goes from Albany and Troy down to the Atlantic. But for the purposes of this grant, we're going to be focusing on 6 counties, the towns within the counties. This isn't eligible to villages, or villages can work in tandem, but cities or counties. So sort of mid-Hudson Valley-ish. Okay, so I'm going to speak to 2 different aspects of our program, the training and the grant. So in terms of the training, we will focus on empowering 4 Funding Futures Fellows, we're calling them, to run a community conversations process. So AKA a listening campaign. And at its core, this is really funding and time for you to focus on listening to your community. There's really a brain trust and wisdom that you may not be tapping into in the form of your residents and all of their experience. So we want to help you access that and for everyone to feel like they have a voice in your community. This is really at its base participatory democracy. So we're going to be guiding you through this multi-step process with the support of subject experts, weekly office hours, and we have consultants that will devote one-on-one time to your team, to your Funding Futures Fellow and their team, who have led their own communities in these sorts of processes, these community listening processes, to great success. And the second aspect is education about financial models that communities can choose to take advantage of funding their community identified priorities. So just to give you a sense of what we're thinking, as I mentioned, the community preservation funds and real estate transfer tax are one. And to give you a sense of how successful that can be, Red Hook put theirs in place in 2007, and they've raised over $8 million towards their projects. And they've been able to leverage that through grants and partnerships. The town of Chatham has raised $315,000 in this first year alone of implementing their real estate transfer tax. And they're doing that and putting those funds towards an agricultural community in their town, keeping their town farming. And they've been wildly successful. There are 90 working farms in Chatham. Community-owned solar is another way to generate funds. This can basically direct the fees from energy for your community through solar, which is often lower cost than other forms of energy. And they can be directed into a fund that your community, funds with which your community can use for projects. And we will also be discussing best practices around crowdfunding, approaching foundations and local banks. So another piece of this is that they'll be participating in the Funding Futures peer-to-peer cohort. So if you followed along with Partners for Climate Action, you may be familiar with our local champions program, and you know that we're big fans of a cohort model. We feel that there are exponential benefits to it, and that's what we're building here. So really what it offers is feedback from each other, alternate points of view, new ideas, and dare I say, learning from each other's mistakes. Okay, so the grant piece. This is not a reimbursement grant. We will be advancing you the money upfront and we'll be trusting you to use it wisely. However, before disbursement, the 4 selected applicants will be asked to submit a more detailed budget to PCA as their costs and staffing plan become clear. And we will direct deposit the funding to a tax-exempt organization. We can only give to tax-exempt organizations. So we need you to be associated with one, and that can be your town or other types, like a library or school. So the total grant is 22,000. 10,000 of that is for the hard costs of running your community conversation processes, like events and mailers. And there's up to $12,000 for staffing if you need it, and administrative costs. So we'll be giving you 1/2 of that payment upfront and 1/2 midway through. So in a nutshell, this supports the people power piece of running the community listening conversations. And just a note on this staffing, you could really do this in a number of ways depending on what was best for you and your community. So, different scenarios, like your Funding Futures Fellow might feel that they need the funds and they could elicit volunteer support just to assist them. but they might need those funds to for the time that they're putting into coming to at least one weekly Zoom for an hour and a half. The rest will mostly be self-directed time, but and the time will vary in terms of the weeks. So it might be heavier some weeks when you've got an event coming, or less other weeks. Um, so there might be another scenario where there's a volunteer who doesn't need a payment. They don't need payment to do this and devote time. They would rather pay an assistant or an intern. Or another choice might be that they could break up the $12,000 to pay multiple people, each with a different task or skill. So in short, we're basically agnostic on how you'd like to do this. We'll look to you to make a proposal for what works for your community. So what is our goal? In sum, our goal is that each community emerges from this process with a grounded understanding of its priorities and an agreement on desired financial models that can make their priorities a reality. We really want you to get to specific project ideas and have a pitch for how to tackle them and fund them.
God, I
Okay.
can't.
So now I'm going to get into some clarifications based on questions that we've already fielded since announcing the application. So this PCA opportunity is not a grant for a specific climate implementation project. This is not for a shovel-ready project that you want to do as an individual or an individual group. That's really what PCA's other grants are designed for, such as our ecological restoration grants and our recent building decarbonization grant, which helped nonprofits and municipalities get off of fossil fuels in their buildings. Funding Futures is really about helping you spark a conversation in your town about your environmental priorities. Specific priorities and projects will emerge from the process. So we're going to help you build buy-in in your town. So the essence of Funding Futures is that it catalyzes capacity building. And it's really to just find out, what does your community want? What do you want together? So PCA, this opportunity is really nonpartisan. We believe that everyone cares about living in a thriving and healthy community. And we don't need to tell you it's an extremely partisan time at the federal level. So we ask that you set aside all of that and focus on your local community. And, think about it. We'd understand, but, if you don't think you can do that, this may not be for you. So this is very much a social process, but we need one person to carry the torch. So we need a point person, and that person would be filling out the application. And we're going to bring that person together in a cohort of point people, each from a different town. So that person we're calling the Funding Futures Fellow. So that person's going to be attending office hours, expert speaker Zooms. They're going to be available for that coaching. They'll serve as our main contact, and they will create a stakeholder team. And we're going to invite them to bring their stakeholders to certain Zoom meetings. We want this to be a learning experience for them and their team. Yeah, so basically I've already said that, but we'll look for them. We're going to be helping them reach out to these stakeholders. You'll actually be doing it, hopefully, as you're applying, and you'll get some letters of support from those people as well. Okay, so another question we've gotten, isn't this a lot like a comprehensive plan process? For sure, it sounds like it, but mainly we are focused on the air, water, and soil in your community. This could lead to a broader comprehensive plan process. Let's say, the will of your community comes clear, and that would be a great time to launch into that broader comp plan process. Maybe that's something you decide to do after this process. Or let's say you've already done a comprehensive plan. This could help you prioritize the environmental centric comp plan ideas to go that you decided as a community already. Okay, I'm going to now walk you through the 1 year timeline. So right now, as you know, we're in the application period. The deadline is May 23rd. That's when all of the application materials are due. However, you're welcome to email them to us sooner on a rolling basis. In late May, early June, Vanessa and I will be conducting interviews with applicants. In late June, we'll be announcing the accepted applicants for communities. In July, we'll introduce the program participants to the process and support them to build stakeholder groups. In August, the Funding Futures Fellows will participate in a half-day nature workshop, which we're really excited about, with Joel Glansberg from Regenesis, if you know of him. And they'll be beginning to learn about financial models. So in September, this is really when the community, the fellows and their stakeholder team will be planning the community outreach and events. October through December, they'll actually have those events. They'll host them and be doing community outreach to try to get people to come. In January, the cohort members will analyze the results of what was proposed by their neighbors during the community events. They'll develop a ballot that lays out those ideas, which they will mail to every member of the community and make available online. And in February and March and April, cohort members will get out the vote. Because this vote, we're devoting a lot of time to it. It's quite important to get that consensus. This is what this is all about. In May, they will follow up by sharing back ballot results with their community based on those results, and then they will develop a plan. And finally, in June, the fellows and their teams will finalize the plan and present them to the cohort. So this will be practice for informing their community and offering the community informed plans to their town boards and the neighbors and their neighbors. And also they'll be talking about the financial mechanisms they hope to pursue. Okay, so now let's just get into the application. I'll just briefly review this. Okay, so there are 5 requirements for the application you may have seen on our webpage. On that webpage, there are tips and optional templates that are available, meaning like town board resolution sort of boilerplates that you can plug and play. So check that out. There's, if you go to the application process section, there's a drop-down menu for section step 1. So the first piece is to submit a letter of interest, which you can submit sooner than later if you like. We do want you to determine which tax exempt entity you'll be applying with. PCA can only, as I said, give grants to tax exempt entities. This could be your local town, or it could be another tax exempt entity such as a library, school, or another nonprofit. If you don't have one, there are organizations like the Good Work Institute in Kingston that are happy to consider being a fiscal sponsor. So you can apply for that status from several different nonprofit entities. Okay, so the next is to submit a letter of support from your town board. Now, even if you're not having the grant money go through your town, even if they're not the selected tax exempt entity, all applicants must do this. And we require this because we really want to set you up for success. We don't want the Funding Futures project to inadvertently end up in a perceived power struggle. And just consider timing on this piece. Most town boards, as you all probably know, just meet once a month. So you have a month and a half to get your applications in. So if you're interested in applying, try to get on your town board agenda as soon as possible. And Vanessa and I are happy to reach out to your town board members and talk to them about this program or present at your town board meetings. Just say the word. Okay, three, we'd like you to submit letters of support from local organizations, businesses, institutions, even people who are important to your community. And in this way, this is kind of testing for you and for us to see, are you invested enough? Do you have enough support to sort of jump in and jumpstart the process and begin reaching out to people and getting their support as potentially your stakeholder team? Four, okay, so we're going to ask you to submit a budget, and this can really be a draft. We understand you won't have the hard numbers until you start, you jump into the program and you start really thinking about the hard costs. But this forces you to think through the reality of the project and the scope and start thinking about costs for your community's population. And lastly, we have this online application form. But this reiterates the other four elements that we need to be emailed to us and asks some very basic questions. We're really trying to not make this onerous. So I just want to underscore that check out the tips and templates on the Funding Futures webpage. We've provided them to make the process easy and to save you time. So lastly, just want to share what we're looking for, elements of strong application. This is so much more about a fit than a good or bad. We are looking for smaller population towns, not cities or counties, as I mentioned. We don't have a cap, but one of the things we're considering is the scope of the funding vis-a-vis population size. Multiple levels of letters of support from local groups and institutions would really make your application shine because ultimately this is a community building process. And lastly, demonstration of dedication and time to devote to this, to see this process through. Okay, great. So I know that was a lot, but in sum, we are hoping that by centering place and that by centering caring about that place, we will begin to reconnect with each other and the living systems that sustain us. This is our deepest hope. So I hope that was helpful, and let's take some questions. And by the way, this is the web address that you can go to find all of the information that I just went over.
Thanks, Paige. Well done.
Yeah.
There was a question in the chat. I just wanted to share it with the rest of the group that we are recording this session. We will post it on the web page. We can also post the slides as well. And our prior info session is recorded and is already embedded there on the web page if you want to refer back. There was one other question about like what exactly is the ballot that we'll be asking each of the four communities to send out. The ballot really collects the ideas that you've been hearing from your community into a ballot format, and then asks the folks in your town to vote on which they think is the most important or what they think should be the priorities. Let's say the top three. And so when you receive all those ballots back, you really get, kind of a pulse read on your community and what they would like to see. Let's see. And you're welcome to come off of mute if you'd like to, if you'd rather, you can always chat us questions as well. Okay, so I'm just looking at the chat here. Would you suggest an open-ended conversation with the community regarding goals or provide some possible objectives from the get-go? So, in the research that we've done, Lynn, thank you for that question. We've really found that starting conversations in an open-ended manner really results in people feeling like they're being heard, that they're being listened to. Of course, existing ideas are already probably floating around in your community, and those will come up. But we're going to give you some training on how to initiate these conversations so that um, people don't feel like they're being pitched something, but they feel like they're really being invited to share their ideas and to give their feedback. Next question. This is from Candace. I'm based in Kingston, but which might be considered a bigger town. Would you suggest focusing on a smaller town in Ulster? Yes, Candace. We really feel like with the scope of the 1 year and the up to $22,000 in grant funding for a larger city, that's probably not enough. So we're kind of encouraging smaller towns to apply. Okay, Olga asks, can two communities work together on an application? I think that is a fascinating question. Paige, what do you think?
I know we haven't considered that, but I love the spirit of that.
Yeah.
I mean, interesting. I mean, I think that's wonderful. Maybe I would say pitch us and we can talk about the particulars. What do you think, Vanessa?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look at the environment and natural resources, for example, watersheds often traverse boundaries, right? As do habitats and so on and so forth. So I think if you can make a case for why these two communities um, should join together and have this sort of deep discussion as one united, I think that could be really interesting. So I'd say we're open to it.
Yeah. And going back to Lynn's question, I just want to say, in terms of an open-ended conversation, we do have an environmental focus, but we did know that, as Vanessa said, we don't want your community to feel like you're pitching them on certain ideas. So we know that other topics important to your community may come up, and so we would just suggest that you file those away, and make sure that people feel heard on those issues as well and perhaps they'll relate to actions that you will be planning through our program.
Okay. This is from Jeff Scales. What's your estimate of time committee of leader, or maybe that's supposed to be commitment? What's your estimation of time commitment of the Funding Futures fellow or the leader in a particular community requesting the grant? Um, and yeah, so we estimate about 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours a week, and that would sort of flex. So, some weeks it'll be kind of intensely planning a big community event that you're doing, for example. Whereas other weeks, maybe as we're getting started, you're doing outreach, you're trying to figure out who could be your stakeholders who are going to be assisting you. But maybe there's one or two Zooms a week. So I'd say 12 hours a week as your estimate. Um, and and of course, we also understand there's life beyond life and work beyond this program. Um, we are planning the schedule to carve out time for, holiday vacations and so on and so forth. Paige, anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I know we've tried to make this exactly. We have breaks, and this will really be self-directed. So you can work as hard as you want on, you can anticipate work coming. So hopefully this will allow people flexibility with their other work schedules.
Hmm.
And of course, you can solicit help from other members of a community, or, as we said, split up the $12,000 for the administrative and staff costs. So it's really hopefully flexible and it won't burden any one person.
Yeah. Like, so for example, say you're someone who really likes to get out and talk to the community, but you need someone to help you, design a flyer or design an event posting, to write up, to compose some blurbs that get sent out on social media or through the library partner that you're working with. So, if you're applying, really think about what are your strong suits, what are your skills, and then what might you be looking for in other volunteers or other paid help. And that's what the part of the grant there is, to help you if you can't be the Swiss Army knife that does it all. Angus, do you have a question?
I do not. Did I click off my audio? I apologize.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, and just to repeat, we have been recording this session. So if you popped in late, no worries. We'll post it on our website. And we can also put the slides there as well for your reference. Any other questions? We are so grateful to see so many people turn out for this. I think it will, we're curious to see, um, where the applications come from. A prior question that we've received was, are you only going to pick one from each county? And the answer is we would love to be able to spread out applications across the Hudson Valley from the 6 counties that we're open to. So that's but just one factor when it comes to us reviewing the applications. Um, the other thing I wanted to mention is we've gotten some questions about the budget. We do have a template posted on the web page on the application section under step 1. You'll see a drop down, and there's a whole bunch of different templates that should help you with the application. There's a template for the budget, um, and a template for, say, a letter of support from your town board. Um, so have a look at those. And just know that this is just a starting point. We encourage you to customize them as you see fit, or you're not required to use those templates. But we think it should be helpful.
Also, we mentioned we're happy to talk with your town boards or, um, even the nonprofit, anyone it would be helpful for us to talk with who may be an ally of yours. We know there are a lot of moving parts to this, so we're also happy to talk through any of it with you in a one-on-one call.
Yeah. I mean, Paige and I are really excited about this project. We've been planning it for a while now, and it is a pilot. So the more we hear from you, the better. We're excited to talk with you and to help.
Are there folks that think they might apply that are on the call? You just put it in the chat or speak up. Oh,
That's
great,
great.
Colin.
Great, great.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah,
Great, great, great.
wonderful. Um, yeah, and so in particular, because of the environmental focus of this community listening project, if you have a conservation advisory council or board, a climate smart task force, or other environmental committee, um, that's a great place to start and talk to those committee members and see if they're interested. Um, and like we mentioned in the presentation, we do require a letter of support from the town board. And this is because we just want them to be looped in. You know, this project is not a government project per se. It's a really community-driven project, but we want to have that support from the town board, just so that everyone knows that this is happening and it starts off on the right foot in a positive manner. So yes, definitely reach out to your town board. Again, there's some temp under the application section of the web page. There's some templates that even kind of coach you on how to talk about the project if you're going to pitch it to the town board. And time is of the essence there because it's just a month and change until the deadline. Um, so we do encourage you to hop to it with that.
We've designed this because we're hoping this will be very helpful to town boards and town governments because we know firsthand from working with municipalities that it's not often the strong suit of a town, village, or board to do outreach. So they want to know what the will of the people is, but they may not, have the communication skills. So this is really what we're going to be helping you do and hoping that that will help town boards feel that their populace is engaged. And and we really feel like it's powerful to ask your community members what they care about. And we've seen that it's had incredible results in the communities who have done this. So this is something we really believe in, and we feel, yeah, we're just excited to help communities do.